My name is Seun Lanlege, and I'm the co-founder of Polytope Labs. We're the developers of Hyperbridge.
Sean, if you had to explain what it is you do and why you do it to your mom, what would you say?
I would say that I work on cross-chain bridging and cross-chain infrastructure. What we do allows developers to move assets and move data across different isolated blockchains securely. You can think of Hyperbridge as the undersea cables. It's going to be completely invisible infrastructure. You're still going to use all the chains you know and love, but the underlying connectivity behind them is going to be Hyperbridge. I didn't grow up in a well-to-do family where I would say lower class. I just realized that there's no help coming. Actually, we're going to have to change our situation ourselves.
So you go from a normal kid to then realizing, man, no one is coming to save me. Then you self-teach, self-taught developer, end up working with Gavin Wood, co-founder of Ethereum, founder of Polkadot at Parity Technology. How did that happen?
I used to live in Nigeria, and the biggest problem for me that Nigeria has is this electoral fraud. So I felt like blockchains, with their transparency, with their verifiability and their openness, could have a potential to bring back fairer elections to places like Nigeria where the democracy has actually failed. I was researching blockchains all the time. I was working on open source code all the time. And I think during the course of that, I may have contributed to a few of Parity's. When I applied for a job at Parity, they just kind of saw that I had already made these contributions before. I just ended up having an interview with the CTO at the time, and then with Gavin Wood himself. And after a month, he said me we'd love to have you come work for us.
Hey, When Shift Happens family. Welcome to Drops, a podcast series where we showcase smaller rising star projects in the crypto space. Since When Shift Happens started to take off, we've received hundreds of requests from many great projects every month that we had to say no to because they weren't a good fit yet in terms of size and impact. But this has now changed with the Drops podcast series. We're building When Shift Happens, the most credible platform in crypto. And there is no reason why smaller projects with big potential shouldn't have a chance to be heard. Drops is not a research service nor an endorsement, but a way to give a voice to the potential big crypto founders of tomorrow. I mean, probably American ones, they might like people who speak French, but if you speak Spanish, or probably it's a good one to learn.
Spanish, I think so too, yeah.
German, definitely not. I don't think women are very attracted by the German, such German accent.
No, I think the accent can be sexy, but the language itself maybe is a little aggressive.
How is your German?
I don't speak any German.
Nothing, no.
At all. I couldn't really.
Despite spending some time in Berlin.
Yeah, no, I just really, for me, languages are a big problem because I have to change also the way I think as well. And that's also very hard for me. It's almost impossible.
So you have the math brain, you don't have the language brain, right?
I have the math brain, unfortunately.
Well, it's better than having known, like me.
I mean, I wouldn't say that.
Better than having known. Where does your math brain come from?
I don't know. I think it came from being isolated as a kid and having to find things to stimulate yourself with. I think I discovered math at a very, very young age. I was home alone, summer break. All my friends had traveled for summer and everything. I had basically read all the literature books, that school recommends, and then I was left with the science books, right? Physics, chemistry, math. Chemistry, physics, at least they have some pictures, right? The math basically has zero pictures. So I had to keep that for last. But eventually, it was either I read my math book or I just stare at the walls. Also because children's programming TV doesn't come on until much later in the day. So you literally have from morning till afternoon to basically do something with your time. So I think I started reading the math books just for fun. Just okay, what's in here? Maybe work out a bit of the exercises. I think math really clicked for me when I realized that there actually is this fundamental axiom that underlies everything, and then everything else is built on top of that axiom, right? So basically, if you don't understand something, it just means you don't understand the axioms, and you should always just remove everything and go down to the basest dimension, and then build your knowledge sort of from that point on. And that's when I started having, I guess, math brain is what you call it.
So we have two Home Alones here, Kevin Home Alone and Sean Home Alone. Sean, if you had to explain what it is you do and why you do it, your mom.
Right.
What would you say?
Oh man, my mom. I've tried to explain this to her, but she technically doesn't really understand. But I would say that I work on cross-chain bridging and cross-chain infrastructure. And what we do allows developers to move assets and move data across different isolated blockchains securely, asterisk securely.
What do you say if I'm your mom and I say, what language is that?
It's obviously English. It's English, but of course, like you have to understand what blockchains are. You have to understand that blockchains are by definition like siloed. Applications that live on these different networks can't really talk to applications that live on a different network, and that there needs to be the introduction of some infrastructure that will facilitate this communication, right? Maybe you could think of it as being similar to the early days of the internet, where we had all these different regional networks, DARPANET, ARPANET, and the like, and the internet sort of becoming this thing that is the amalgamation of all these different regional networks.
Can you go a bit deeper into this internet or early internet days example?
For sure. So, I mean, I think that where we are in blockchain is like very, very similar to where the early internet sort of started from. And it's only now that we have this like super net, right? That like we now see the applications of a global internet, like Uber, for instance, right? Like imagine if Uber was only isolated to maybe you were in a Cambridge campus and you could only use Uber there because like it's only deployed to the Cambridge internet, right? This would be absolutely ridiculous. And I think this is the same thing that we're experiencing right now in blockchain, where applications are just naturally siloed to all these specific networks, and users on different networks can't really access these applications. I think in the next 10 years, hopefully when Hyperbridge becomes more mainstream, people would find the idea ridiculous that you had to basically couldn't access applications that live on a different network. Like that would be a ridiculous idea.
It's already ridiculous now. It's
I mean,
it's ridiculous to do so much so that I barely don't do it, right? I'm just like, fuck that. Like most of the time.
Yeah, and also the user experience of accessing these applications are also very, very, it's insane, right? Like you have to bridge, and in the bridging process, you don't really know what's happening. You're just kind of like hoping you get your funds eventually. I think this is what we're trying to solve, this anxiety and, the security consideration that comes with going cross-chain.
Who are you?
My name is Seun Lanlege, and I am the co-founder of Polytope Labs. We're the developers of Hyperbridge.
Who are you as a person?
As a person? I consider myself to be sort of philosophical. I enjoy philosophical ideas. I enjoy science and technology a lot. I also enjoy a bit of gaming and competitiveness as well. I like to play like first-person shooter games, for instance. I play a lot of Battlefield. If you're on Battlefield, you should definitely add me up. And yeah, I enjoy music as well. I enjoy a lot of music. And I hate to be one of those people that say that like, oh, I listen to a wide range of music, but I really do. You find me listening to like house, techno, electronic, rock, a little bit of noise rock, a little bit of psychedelic rock as well. Afro beats as well. Classical. So for me, music is like an expression of human emotion. And I think as long as I'm able to interpret the emotion, I think the medium, the music, the genre is kind of meaningless.
Who's your favorite philosopher?
That's a very good question. I don't actually have a favorite philosopher. I do have people I enjoy reading. Carl Jung, he discusses a lot about human psychology. For me, I think that's been, as a person who's now leading a team, that's actually been very relevant to kind of my day-to-day work. But
for example, just give me like examples of like what you learned through Carl Jung's work and philosophy that you're using today to lead a team.
I mean, I'll be revealing my secrets to my team. But Carl Jung basically discusses sort of the notion of the shadow, right? The unconscious mind, and how like people who are not aware of the unconscious mind are unfortunately then controlled by it. And it manifests in the way that they act. It manifests in things that they may not even be aware of. Like they can be conscious, but their unconscious mind is controlling them, and they're not even aware of this. And especially when you're working with a team, you actually are also managing their unconscious mind. Unfortunately, you have to be aware of what they're thinking subconsciously. Do they enjoy working here? Do they like their job? Do they see the vision? Do they see themselves working here for a long time, potentially? So it also requires you to be super hyper aware of every little thing they do and sort of constructing this framework that ensures that like what their actions are consistent with what you want them to do. And if you start to notice anything that is like maybe off, you should always confront them and always like make sure that they feel free to speak to you. There should not be a shadow is kind of what I would say if you're running a team, is that you shouldn't let your employees have a shadow, in the sense that they shouldn't have this sort of repressed emotions about the workplace and about the work and about like the project. They should always feel comfortable discussing everything and anything with you.
Tell me something about yourself, for me and for the audience, about your life that will help me and us, people listening here, trust you more.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a very, very heavy. That's a very heavy question. But honestly, I would say that I try not to operate in a way that requires people to trust me. And this is kind of why I like blockchains a lot, is that you don't have to trust a blockchain, right? Blockchains operate transparently. You know, all the work that they do it in the open. And if you download, a copy of the blockchain and you run a node, whatever, you can basically verify what the blockchain does by itself. And so I think that like, being transparent, being open, always telling the truth. These are things that I think make for a better society in general, right? Like it would be great if we all spoke the truth. It would be great if we all like met people at where we were and not having to like, resort to deception and resort to all these issues. This is why basically blockchains were created, is because people do these things, and we need to introduce blockchains to basically bring back truth and bring back like verifiability. And so, like I said, this is why I love blockchains, is because I would love for the world to be more like this.
There's a pattern across many of the people I talk to on this podcast. There's something that happened in their childhood or in their life that gave them a chip on the shoulder, and that explained their fire in the belly today. What happened in your life that can help me understand this hunger for success? We were talking about hundreds of millions before. Where does that come from?
No, for sure. I'm going to be very, very honest and very open with you. I didn't grow up in a well-to-do family. We actually were, I would say, lower class growing up. We used to live in like a one-bedroom apartment. So that would be myself, my two sisters, and my younger brother, he's the youngest, and my parents, all in a one-bedroom apartment. And for a long time, we were religious, right? For a long time, I thought maybe we were just waiting for like, God or something to do something and make our situation change.
You thought so? Or it's something that was...
It was something that was
indoctrinated.
Yeah, it was something that was indoctrinated into us in the household, that they were just waiting for God to change our situation and whatever. And after like waiting, kids were very impatient. After waiting for quite a long time, I just realized that there's no help coming. Actually, we're going to have to change our situation ourselves. And I don't remember specifically when that switch happened for me, but I do remember that after that point, I just took my life into my own hands. And like I take responsibility for my failures, and I also take responsibility for my successes, right? Like people always say, oh no, you shouldn't say that like you did it on your own. You should say, thank God or whatever. I completely disagree.
Who are the people who say that to you?
I mean, obviously religious people. But like, I think that like a lot of people, it's easy to not take responsibility for your life because it's very hard. I mean, like it's your life. And it's much harder to say, okay, I'm going to be the master of my own fate. And this is also another philosopher that I really like, who discusses existentialism, is the idea that actually we are the ones that make choices. There is no determinism in the universe. A lot of people believe in determinism. They believe that like their life has been written ahead of time and they're just kind of playing a part. Whereas I'm on the opinion that like we make choices and we can choose sort of the timeline in which we want to live. And I feel like I've done a good choice of choosing the timeline. I mean, I'm on a podcast with Kevin, and you've done interviews with like a lot of the biggest founders in the space. So I would say that like I'm doing a good job at like choosing the timeline that I want to live in. And it works if you really take responsibility for it.
How much do you believe in, how do you make this happen? You think about it like really hard. You write down things, goals, and then they happen when you sleep over them. And obviously sleeping and hoping is not enough, but
yeah, of course,
you need to have this direction, right? Like how do you Just think about someone in Nigeria who might be like very religious but wants something to happen. What should they do? What kind of habits should they start and follow to go from God is going to do something for me to, oh man, I really changed my entire life and situation?
I think first off, you need to divorce the idea that there is some divine like power or anything that is there to save you. You need to relish in the like despair that there is nothing that is going to help you. Like,
so you don't believe in God at all? You don't believe in anything?
I'm an agnostic. So I am of the belief that there is no proof. There's no empirical proof of the existence of a supernatural entity that, you know, claims to have created the world or whatever.
This is the math brain.
This is the math brain talking, of course. But I think this is what has worked for me. This despair. You do need to like accept that despair and work with it, actually.
Especially as a man.
Especially as a man.
Especially as a man, absolutely. Yeah. Like, there's no one who's gonna fucking save you. Like, sorry.
So you do need to accept it and work with it, and, you know, listen to your demons. You know, listen to the shadow, and, you know, this is going back to Carl Jung once more, and like figure out how to silence it. You can't run away from it forever, right? And so what do? I basically realize that like in the human mind or in the human body, I guess, there's like two forces. There's the flesh and there's the mind. And I'm not trying to sound religious, but like the flesh wants immediate gratification. The mind can do more long-term planning. The mind can actually sort of live with a bit of discomfort before needing some gratification. And so you need to figure out a way to put the mind in control. Whether that's through exercise, whether that's through like, you know, going to the gym, playing sports. So these are all the things that I do personally to sort of bring the body under the control of the mind. And it works for me, right? So when I'm in the gym and I'm working out, I feel more in control of myself. I feel more in control of my impulses. I feel more in control of my emotions. I'm able to sort of bring these things under rein so that we can now plan, right? It's like, I made this joke before about playing tennis, that like tennis is kind of like meditation because you always have to return to baseline, you know?
And also you're focused so much on something that you don't have time to think about anything else. So that's the other side of the meditation. Actually, gaming is one too, right?
Yeah, for me, gaming is a kind of meditation because you have to focus, otherwise you lose.
Yeah, absolutely. So you go from a normal kid to then realizing, man, no one is coming to save me.
Absolutely.
Then you self-teach yourself, self-taught developer.
Yes, I am.
And then you end up working with Gavin Wood, the co-founder of Ethereum, founder of Polkadot at Parity Technology. How did that happen?
Yeah, no, it's an insane story, insane journey, honestly. I remember I was sort of nerd sniped by blockchains early 2017. And, you know, like I said, I used to live in Nigeria, and a lot of the biggest problem for me that Nigeria has is this electoral fraud, right? The people that actually win like popular vote, that, you know, the more, I would say, qualified candidates don't usually win the elections. It's usually the, you know, undesired ones that win the elections. So I felt like blockchains, with their transparency, with their verifiability and their openness, could have a potential to bring back fairer elections to places like Nigeria, where the democracy, you know, so-called democracy, has actually failed the population, has failed the masses. And so this is why I started working on blockchains, is that like I saw like immediate solutions that blockchains could provide to like places like Nigeria. And so I was researching blockchains all the time. I was working on open source code all the time. I was like, you know, writing my own blogs and articles and sort of trying to contribute to the space as a whole, right? Because like that's what blockchain was at the time. It was this open research area where anyone could bring and present their ideas. And I think during the course of that, I may have like contributed to a few of Parity's like open source repos or something. And then when I applied for a job at Parity, they just kind of saw that I had already like made these contributions before. And so I just ended up having like a interview with like the CTO at the time, who was also former CTO at Ethereum Foundation, and then with Gavin Wood himself. And yeah, they just, after a month, they said me like, would love to have you come work for us. And so it was kind of serendipitous in a way. But yeah, it was definitely a turning point for my life as well.
So you self-taught yourself blockchain dev in 2017.
Yeah.
And I think most people would not even touch crypto engineering today without kind of proper training. What made you believe you could do it 8 years ago?
Right. So I'm a bit of a megalomaniac. And this is something I've also kind of realized about myself is that so megalomaniacs basically believe that they're omnipotent. They believe they can do anything. And I think you need to be a little bit of this to be a founder, because you do have to do everything as a founder. You have to write the code, you have to do the marketing, you have to talk to the investors. You're doing everything. You're basically the person at the center of it all. So I've always felt that I could do anything, especially, like I said, realizing that my life was in my hands. It's not that I could do everything, it's that I have to do everything. And so you have to believe that you can do everything. And so back then I was like, yeah, I could definitely learn cryptography, even though I've never touched cryptography in my entire life. I could definitely learn distributed systems. I could definitely learn about virtual machines and how they work. And, what happened was I quit my job and I just spent a year just going down the rabbit hole of all the different things that I needed to learn to be able to contribute to blockchains. So definitely also having a lot of free time and being jobless helps.
You worked on both Ethereum and Polkadot?
Yes, I did.
Alongside one of the sharpest minds in crypto, Gavin Wood.
Yeah.
The man who literally created Ethereum and Polkadot. Was twice on this podcast, as we talked about before. I mean, I had to go see him in Cambridge and in Lisbon. What's one thing you learned from him that shaped the way you think about infrastructure?
I mean, Gavin is obviously the brightest minds in crypto, but at the same time...
Why do you say that?
Well,
would you say obviously?
I say obviously because it's a lot of work to have hits back to back. If you understand what I mean. For instance, artists they make a hit song and then they struggle to follow up, right? Gav didn't. That wasn't Gav's problem. He did Ethereum. He did Polkadot, and now he's going to do Jam, right? So he obviously has proven to have that technical soundness of mind to be able to build solid products, and the reason I'm saying obviously is because go back to Ethereum, actually. Let's go back to Ethereum. Parity Ethereum, which was the Ethereum client that was developed by Parity, was the best Ethereum client in the Ethereum ecosystem.
Why do you say that?
How
can you explain that to someone like me who is not technical? Hey, look.
So there was actually a bug in Go Ethereum at the time, which was maintained by the Ethereum Foundation, that took down the entire Go Ethereum network of nodes. So all the Go Ethereum nodes went down, and the only nodes that were up maintaining the Ethereum network was actually Parity Ethereum nodes. So when I say obviously, I mean obviously, right? And there's lots of events like this. Polkadot itself is a marvel of engineering. Polkadot brought around the idea of data availability first before we saw this happen in Ethereum, right? Polkadot actually implemented sharding, something that was too complex to be retrofitted onto Ethereum. Polkadot has, this multi-core architecture that allows multiple blockchains to be secured by a single consensus system. This has never been done before, even till today. Polkadot was the white paper for Polkadot came out in 2018, and we've still not seen a copycat of Polkadot till now. It's 2025, right? So that tells you the required, the insane amount of engineering that's required to build something like Polkadot as well. So when I say obviously, I mean there's a lot of evidence for this.
You started to say Gavin is obviously the sharpest mind in crypto, but right? You start to say that, then I cut you off. What's something you believe that Gavin still hasn't understood fully?
Right. I mean, and this is not an opinion of mine. I think this is very shared in the Polkadot ecosystem. Is that Gav could do more to support the Polkadot ecosystem. And just good examples of this, right? Look at Vitalik. Vitalik is constantly talking about products and builders that are building in the Ethereum ecosystem, constantly promoting them and sharing his audience, using his platform to share, their works with, his audience. Same thing goes for Anatoly from Solana. He doesn't even care, actually. He just retweets whatever, right? He just wants more people building on Solana. If you look at Gavin's Twitter, it's basically empty, right? And
I think the last Probably the last post are 2 or 3 retweets of our podcast, like 2 months ago.
Exactly right.
I mean, I don't know, maybe there is some new stuff, right? But it's true, like there's like 1 or 2 interaction a month.
I think that Gavin needs to, and he speaks about not being a charismatic founder, and I feel like he has the right ideas, but he doesn't do this thing where he puts other people, in front of him and put people, in front of his audience as well. And now, don't get me wrong, Gav did tweet about Hyperbridge a few times, but this was like after like years of us working on this stuff and deploying this stuff. And I'm not saying he should have done this earlier. I'm just saying that there's a lack of this in general for anyone else. Like we didn't even I didn't ask Gav to tweet that. Like he just kind of tweeted on his own. We haven't spoken in such a long time, and so it was nice to see he was thinking of us.
Why do you think that is?
I think Gav is like very, very technical, and he only wants to promote and platform like technically superior products. Yeah. But like you really shouldn't care. You should just try to create this like, I guess, aura that there's builders, there's a builder community, and like if you come here and build, we will support you in any way we can. And sure, maybe your idea right now isn't good enough, but if you work with us, then we can refine and evolve your idea to a point where it's actually going to be something that's truly game changing or revolutionary. Hyperbridge didn't start out like as what it currently is today, but through that evolutionary like perspective of the product is kind of how it now became what it is today.
Yeah. Actually, one of the questions I asked, it was from Ed Hess, who said, hey, Kevin asked that to Gav in the second podcast I did with him. It was, do you really believe that superior tech will win? And he said, absolutely. And if I asked other people from the Polkadot ecosystem, which I also had on the podcast, they were saying, absolutely not. And there are other key people in the ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And so I could feel there was a sort of misalignment there. Let's talk about Hyperbridge.
For sure.
You've said that traditional bridges are a disaster waiting to happen.
I have multiple times.
In 2021, basically proved you right. 2021. Take us back to that moment. Those hacks, what did they expose?
I think that, bridging as well, what has become more traditional these days are basically honeypots. And in 2021, I think, and crypto always has this short-term memory problem, right? But in 2021, we had, I think, 3 major bridge hacks. We had, I think, Nomad, we had multi-chain, and we had one more, I think it was either Ronin or Poly Network. It was one of the 2. And that's kind of when I realized that, holy shit, like, everyone is just like bridging with multi-sigs. And these multi-sigs, they're basically hot wallets. And if we know anything about hot wallets, is that it's a matter of when, not if they get compromised. So that's kind of why we started working on Hyperbridge, which is to remove the need for hot wallets in bridging and replace that with a blockchain that is fully decentralized, transparent, and open. So, to sort of set the stage, you want to execute some transactions on Polygon, some cross-chain transactions on Polygon. Maybe they're coming from Base. You need a way to authorize these transactions, to tell Polygon, oh, these transactions are specifically coming from Base. And the way that every bridge does that is that they introduce these multi-sigs, they introduce these third-party attesters that then perform this approval. But how do they perform this approval? You don't know. They did this off-chain. They did this in private. They did this in secret. All you see are the signatures on-chain that says, well, these transactions are valid. And the problem, of course, when, of course, their private keys get compromised and now anyone can approve any transaction. I mean, we literally just had 2 bridge hacks in the same week last week. Same thing, someone's private keys got compromised and they just minted an infinite amount of tokens. This was the CD5 fund and the Gainzy AI thing. And so our perspective is that these things will continue to happen unless they're replaced with a more resilient bridging architecture. And so Hyperbridge itself is a blockchain that verifies transactions. It verifies cross-chain transactions. It verifies finality of transactions, and then is able to settle those transactions on any blockchain. And because it's verifying transactions, it's doing this on-chain. It's doing this in the open. It's doing this transparently. And this is verifiable. This is decentralized. And no one has control over the Hyperbridge blockchain. Even governance has very limited control over what the Hyperbridge blockchain can and cannot do.
What's the breakthrough here?
So the breakthrough definitely is the fact that we've now implemented light clients for all these different networks. We have a light client for Ethereum. We have a light client for BSC. We have a light client for Polygon, which is what allows us to verify transaction finality. Couple this with Hyperbridge being a blockchain on Polkadot, we inherit a lot of things that the Polkadot network, that makes the Polkadot network, or rather that makes Hyperbridge sort of uniquely positioned, right? So for instance, Polkadot's finality is in 30 seconds. So when Hyperbridge verifies cross-chain transactions, it can settle those transactions to any network in 30 seconds. Polkadot is also very highly scalable. With the recent Elastic upgrade, we can compute as much transactions as we want on a single blockchain, but sort of in a multi-core fashion. And thirdly, we inherit very high economic security. Polkadot has over $3 billion staked backing the network, which means that we don't need to bootstrap our own validator set or economic security from scratch. We're leveraging Polkadot's economic security. And this is much more secure than any of the bridges today. Like Hyperbridge basically has the highest economic security of any bridge today in crypto.
So we're talking about decentralized bridge here. Most people outside of crypto hear decentralized bridge and probably they have their eyes glaze over. I asked you before to kind of talk about internet analogy, right?
Yeah.
When explaining to your mom. What's one real world analogy that could have been completely unrelated to the early days of the internet that makes Hyperbridge click instantly for a normal person who doesn't understand anything about technical stuff?
Yeah, I mean, a good analogy would be, you can think of Hyperbridge as the undersea cables. It's going to be completely invisible infrastructure. You're not really going to have to interact with Hyperbridge at all. You're still going to use all the chains you know and love, but the underlying connectivity behind them is going to be Hyperbridge. Like when you use Uber, you're not really thinking about the undersea cable that is routing your requests all the way to their servers in San Francisco. You just use their app. You just use the apps you already know and love, but it's now that they will be now more secure because of Hyperbridge.
So the different blockchains would be different countries or continents?
You can think of them that way, yes.
And you would have the undersea cables, which would be Hyperbridge.
Yes.
But it's this kind of new way to do undersea cables, because the current way doesn't really work.
It's evident.
Do you have an example of what the current way would be? If you say what we're doing is undersea cables, this is the kind of undersea cables that is done today, but here is why it doesn't work. And this is, we're adding this thing to undersea cables. Maybe you can look, I don't know if you know the history of undersea cables. I don't know it, right? So people can really understand. Okay,
yeah, no,
I
would say that like the current way would actually be using messengers, right? You write down your message, you give a messenger, and they have to deliver the message to you. But the problem, of course, is they could get like waylaid, they could get ambushed, and the message could be changed. Or the message themselves could become malicious. They decide not to deliver the message, or they change the message themselves. There's no way that you can guarantee in this system of messengers that your message will arrive at the destination spot in the same way, right? You could even sign it, but like they could also forge your signature, right? So it's interesting that like the way we now have secure messaging is through digital systems, right? Because we have cryptography, we can encrypt these things. And we can ensure that the counterparty can now decrypt that message. So Hyperbridge is this like digital revolution that now gives us reliable messaging, right? Through advanced cryptography. Whereas the existing systems are more like just giving your messages to a messenger, like kind of hoping that they're not malicious or nothing bad happens along the way.
No storm.
Even worse.
Funny, I was talking just before with Costas from SUI.
Yeah.
He was the lead cryptography at WhatsApp and Facebook. And we talked about all that stuff, basically. Cryptography, encrypted messages, make sure that no one else can see it, make sure that the actual message is received by the actual person. So it just all ties up together beautifully. Why hasn't anyone else figured out this undersea cable system for blockchains?
So the reality is that it's a philosophical problem. A lot of ecosystems, rather than trying to be heterogeneous, want to be homogeneous. An example here is like Cosmos. They do have bridging, but only within the Cosmos ecosystem. Ethereum, they do have, I guess what you call it, bridging, but only within the L2 ecosystem, right? And honestly, I wouldn't say between the L2 ecosystem. They only have bridging between L1 and L2. That's all. Going L2 to L2 is like a completely